Okay, so let's begin on Capitol Hill, shall we? Lawmakers just could not get the job done to keep the government that your tax dollars fund running. Welcome to day one of a government shutdown. Now, in just the last hour, the Republican-sponsored continuing resolution, that failed to pass. The Democrats came forward with a version as well. It also failed. Senate Majority Leader John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson had this to say earlier on the state of play.
The simple truth is Democrats in Congress have dragged our country into another reckless shutdown to satisfy their far-left base. That is the truth. Whether or not the government remains open or reopens is entirely up to them.
Chuck Schumer, at the behest of a bunch of liberal, far-left activist groups, has walked his Democrat colleagues into a boxed canyon. There's no way out, folks. There's no way out. This could have been avoided. It's totally unavoidable. And everybody's now asking the question, how does this end? Well, it ends when the Senate Democrats pick this bill up, passed by the House of Representatives, and vote for it.
Translation blame game. Well, Democrats also making some blame. Here is Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen.
It's really unfortunate that the House of Representatives is AWOL right now. Speaker of the House isn't even here. President Trump walked away from the negotiations originally, spent the weekend on the golf course, and then came back. And we saw how seriously he took this when he did that AI, deep AI fake. The president is not serious about resolving this issue. We are. And I want to thank my...
So let's get to the Hill and break this all down. CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Good to have you with us, first of all. They tried before midnight. They tried again today, both a no-go. So is there any indication up there on the Hill that lawmakers are going to try again?
Hey, Reed, it's great to see you. Yeah, yesterday was remarkable because both sides were so dug in and basically resigned to the idea that the government was going to shut down. Now the reality has hit and the pressure is on. Both sides still very much entrenched in their positions, as you heard from those sound bites there. But we do know, we've been watching the Senate floor during that last vote, and there was a bipartisan group kind of huddling on the floor. And we have been learning from our reporting that there are discussions underway for an even shorter term bill that might at least get the government back open and have those conversations about health care. Now, these are just preliminary readouts from these huddles, but it does give us a sign that there are conversations happening between both sides. Now, the big question is, what do the Senate leaders agree to? What does the president agree to? The sticking point here that Democrats have is that they say they won't support any measure unless they get policy to extend Obamacare tax credits that are set to run out at the end of this year. That is their demand, along with some other things, but that is essentially their red line. Republicans say this is just an extension of government funding. Let's reopen the government. We can talk about this once the government is reopened. So some preliminary discussions are happening now, but we'll wait to see whether they indeed bear fruit.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns on Capitol Hill checking in with us. Thank you so much. Let's look live at the White House, where Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is getting ready to update reporters in a press briefing. Our CBS journalists are in the room at the ready to ask questions about the government shutdown and many other issues. But keeping the topic on the government shutdown, Vice President J.D. Vance, he joined CBS Mornings earlier. He places the blame on Democrats for the shutdown. In fact, he warned Americans could feel the effects of lawmakers failing to reach an agreement. Listen.
We're in this position because Senate Democrats decided that they were going to shut down the government despite the fact that the House voted to keep the government open. We're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to make sure that as much of the people's government remains open or functional as possible. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. But there's going to be some pain. And there's necessarily going to be some pain because Senate Democrats refuse to reopen the government. We hope that they'll change their minds in the days to come.
So let's bring in CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand in front of the White House. Natalie, we've heard from the vice president. What does the president have to say today?
Hi, Reed. Yeah, top Republicans, including the vice president, have talked about, potential service lapses to the American public, concerns that things like food assistance for low-income families and children, SNAP and WIC programs could be impacted if funding runs out, if the shutdown goes on. But then you have the president's remarks just yesterday saying that, a shutdown could be an opportunity for more layoffs or getting rid of Democratic programs that don't fit with the administration's priorities. So a signal that, the president could want to make this as painful as possible for Democrats as, this White House continues to place the blame squarely on Democrats. If you walk into the White House press briefing room, of course, they're preparing for this briefing happening shortly, but they've been playing video clips of Democratic lawmakers speaking out against shutdowns in the past as they really try to keep the pressure on here. And really the question is, as these federal agencies detail their contingency plans for things like furloughs, we're waiting to learn more details about what that planning for potential layoffs could be. If you look on agency websites, so far, the only one that's really publicly been out there with potential reduction in force is the CDC's website, which notes that around potentially 1,500 employees could face reduction in force. We're still waiting to see if that really comes to fruition.
So in the last few minutes, we've heard from Democrats blaming Republicans, Republicans blaming Democrats, but also President Donald Trump. He's been taunting Democrats on social media. What can you tell us about maybe photos of their White House meeting where you can see Mr. Trump talking about this, and also what we're seeing there on the screen, Trump 2028 hats on his desk? What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, you're seeing that picture from the big meeting that happened here earlier in the week as congressional lawmakers, top congressional leaders and the president tried to head off a shutdown with those hats, the Trump 2028 hats that we've seen before, as the president has talked about running for potentially a third term, even though, of course, that is prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. But House Minority Leader Jeffries was actually asked about that, and he said that the hats just kind of seemed to randomly appear, during the middle of this meeting. And on CNN, he said he looked at the hat, looked at Vice President J.D. Vance, who was also in the room, and said, "Do you have a problem with this?" And Vance said no comment, and then they just kind of went on with their discussion. But some interesting insight about kind of the behind the scenes there from Jeffries himself.
And it continues. Natalie Brand, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Well, with the U.S. economy already facing headwinds, a lengthy shutdown can weigh on investors and you at home, consumer confidence. So how's this for a loss? $7 billion a week. Now, that's according to an economist for EY Parthenon to CBS News. So let's talk about that, bringing in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, those are some really eye-popping numbers, especially when you use the words per week. So let's say this goes on for weeks and weeks or even months or more than a month, like the last time we had a shutdown during President Trump's first time in office. What's the damage?
So I do want to put some context around that $7 billion number, because you're right. I think you hear that number as an average person and you're going, my gosh, that's huge.
Right.
It's actually only 1/10 of 1% of U.S. GDP. So let's say it does go on for a few weeks like it did back in 2018. It's only 0.3 to 0.4% of 1% of our U.S. GDP. So when you think about it that way, I don't want to dismiss it, but I do want to put it in context. Now, the reason why something like that happens is you have these federal workers who are furloughed and they will get back pay. But if it does happen for a couple of weeks, it's really hard for folks living paycheck to paycheck to go out and pay rent, to go out and continue spending at restaurants, at travel and leisure establishments. And so that's where you see a lot of the ripple effect, because it's not just someone who is directly impacted, but it's the businesses and places that they go and spend their hard-earned money. Now, if you are an average American, things like your Social Security checks, your Medicare checks, things like that, they are not going to go away, but something as simple as that can have a further ripple effect through the economy.
Well, also another effect. I'm reading that the Labor Department says that they won't release their September jobs report. That's due out this week if the government continues shut down. So what decisions are made based on that report, and what could be the complications in our country if those numbers are not released on schedule?
So this was really a big moment for how the labor market was doing. We were going to get that September jobs report. We're also going to get inflation data that the BLS releases in the next 2 weeks, right? CPI, PPI, that's producer prices. This impacts the Federal Reserve and how they are going to look at whether it makes sense to cut interest rates. And remember, they're walking that really delicate line between a labor market that's weakening and then prices that are starting to tick up, partly due to the impact of tariffs. If they don't get that data, they're going to be flying blind a little bit, and they may even be more cautious. Investors, analysts alike are expecting a quarter-point rate cut at that meeting at the end of October. And some analysts that I've talked to said, well, maybe the Fed goes back to the wait-and-see approach. And Reed, it is not just the September data, because not only will they delay the release of last month's picture, if you will, they also have stopped collecting data now. That is going to cascade through the next few months. And there has already been, from the White House and other economists, questions around the validity of the data. So then if you are going to be in a situation where you aren't actively collecting it, that is just going to have a ripple effect over the next few months as the Fed continues to think about what it's going to do with interest rates.
Sign me up. I'm a student of Kelly O'Grady U, and there will be a test at the end of every segment. Kelly O'Grady, it's always great to talk to you, friend. Thank you so much.